mistakes I made, it was, and you've heard this from other CEOs all the time, it was too late. You waited too long, you put up with too much bureaucracy or something like that. And then the other thing is people mistakes. You know, that you just took it too long to recognize, and that takes a long time to fix or something like that. You know, other decisions that we lost money or something like that, I don't worry that much about that. But those are the two main flaws, I guess.
So it's interesting. You waited too long. Let's talk about that in the context of the huge technological revolution we're in the midst of, and the AI revolution, because you are spending very big on technology, and you've been very aggressive. Can you talk me through how you're thinking about AI and how you're thinking about positioning JPMorgan, and what are you actually doing?
And so we don't look at AI that different than technology. Technology has always been the thing that changes everything we all do. That's been true my whole life, my whole career. So we've always had, the head of technology at the management table, and we do any kind of business review. What are you doing in tech? And it could be, for finance or HR. It's just, what are you doing in tech? How are you going to improve your ops? What are you doing what's better, what other people do? AI, we took it out of tech. They worked close with tech, now has a seat at the table. And so whenever we meet, there's a list of AI. What are you doing in AI? So any one of you, if you worked at JPMorgan, you have your list of what are you doing in AI, what are you implementing? It could be coding, it could be open AI, it could be limited systems. We have 500 use cases, and you got to get better at it. It's very fast, it's changing rapidly. We have an LLM where 150,000 people use that internal data every week. And you just got to make it more to your psyche. And I still think it's the tip of the iceberg. I think this one is faster, is massive. It is like the internet, or electricity. It's not going to roll out over 20 years. It's more parabolic for now.
But when you think about the impact of AI, do you think of it as being an efficiency improver? Are you looking at we can improve things across all of these business units, or are you thinking that this is going to reinvent what JPMorgan is at a much more fundamental level?
I think it could be both, so doing things better, faster, quicker, more. So we have use cases in risk, fraud, marketing, errors, customer service, idea generation, hedging. It's used extensively, credit, everywhere. But I do think if you take it to the next step, agents, that could change your business. The speed at which things happen, how people access our systems. So yeah, and that is true for our technology. Remember in the old days, 40 years ago, you called up to do a stock trade. Now you do it on your iPad, and you enter it, and it goes through algorithms, and it gets automatically executed. So it will change the way customers face us. We have to be very adept at saying, what do you want? You're the customer. How do you want to access it? And so yeah, I think it'll change a bunch.
And
it may lead to us winning and losing in big areas. So
do you think it poses a threat to incumbents more? Are you more worried about new fintechs coming much more adept at this than you were before?
Well, this is very important. So if you go back 20 years ago, our competitors were Goldman and Morgan and Wells and Bank of America. As you see, they're all doing well now, all of them. But now we have Stripe and PayPal and fintechs and Chime and Dave and Sophie and Revolut and these are great companies, and they're coming at you, some to pick a sliver of the business, some to take your whole business. So yeah, I think you have to look at all of that, and if you put your head in the sand, you will lose. I think that was true 30 years ago, but I think it's probably more true today. And the brain power and money that's going into this thing is extraordinary. And so, if we don't do our job faster, quicker, yeah, we'll lose too.
And when you take the experience you've had at JPMorgan, what does it make you think about the impact across the economy? Are you in the camp that, say, someone like Dario Amodei is, half of all entry-level white-collar jobs will be gone in 1 to 5 years? Do you think it is going to be a kind of cataclysmic impact on the labor market?
Yeah, I don't know about that. So here, as a business person, my view is don't put your head in the sand. It is what it is. We're going to deploy it. Will it eliminate jobs? Yes. Will it change jobs? Yes. Will it add some jobs? Probably. It is what it is, and you can hope for the world you want, but you're going to get the world you got, and your competitors are going to use it, countries are going to use it. However, I do think it may go too fast for society. And if it goes too fast for society, that's where government and business and the collaborative ways to step in together and come up with a way to retrain and people or move it over time. So you go back, trade adjustment assistance was supposed to do that. If a town loses a factory and they lose jobs, you have income assistance, relocation, early retirement, retraining. We may have to do that, and I think we're doing it already ourselves.
That wasn't exactly a great success. In the US case, it was incredibly poorly done.
It did not work. We need to be prepared to have something that works this time.
But given the speed at which this is happening, and I'm not so much talking about JPMorgan, I'm talking in public policy terms, given the speed at which this technology is coming, what do governments, what does the US government, what do other governments need to be doing right now to prepare societies for that?
I have a plan to retrain people, relocate people, income assist people. I'll give you a thought exercise, okay? 2 million commercial trucks in the United States. You know, it may get to the point where you can push a button, you're going to save lives, it's going to be faster, you're going to save CO2, it obviously makes sense. And should you do it all at once if 2 million people go from driving a truck, making $150,000 a year, to a next job might be $25,000? No, you'll have civil unrest. So therefore, phase it in, retrain.
How can you phase in AI?
Just tell them you can't lay off 2 million truckers tomorrow. You can phase it in over.
So you want the government to tell you can't lay off a whole bunch of people at JPMorgan?
And we would agree. If we have to do that to save society, remember, it'll be more productive society. So society will have more production. We're going to cure a lot of cancers. You're not going to slow it down. How do you have plans in place to make it work better if, in fact, it does something terrible? And that's the only way to do it.
And that should be done at the level of the government telling companies they cannot lay off?
No, I think it should be done at more of a local level where someone says to a JPMorgan, we give you incentives to put in place to retrain these people. Can you slow this down and give people income assistance? Yeah, we could do stuff like that. We're not going to kill all of our employees tomorrow because of AI. We're just not like that.
Absent that, will in 5 years' time, will JPMorgan have fewer employees than it has now?
Well, if we're good, we'll have, we're growing still around the world. But my guess is it'll be fewer employees, yeah.
In 5 years?
Yeah.
So AI, the technological revolution, is one of the huge changes we're living through. We're also living through a very dramatic geopolitical shift. The word Greenland keeps coming up here. Before we get to Greenland itself, more broadly, you've written in shareholder letters over the years about the importance of geopolitics. You've worried about geopolitics in previous years. How dangerous is this particular geopolitical moment? Is it the most dangerous you've seen?
Well, look, I think it's cumulative. I mean, I think the world, after the invasion of Ukraine by 300,000 Russian troops, eyes wake up. We thought the world was safe. It's simply not safe. And so, my view is what I want, and I think you should always talk about what is you actually want. You're a king for a queen for a day. I want a stronger NATO.
Years.
I think we need a stronger NATO. I think it's right for us to complain that NATO didn't do enough. Fine, got it. Crying over spilled milk. How do you make it stronger? And I think we need a stronger Europe. I think that's good for America. It's good for Europe. They know what they need to do. The Draghi report and all these common markets and savings and investment policies, and they don't have that common market yet. They have too much bureaucracy. They have too much things that get in the way. But that would be good for Europe and very good for America. And trade and tariffs are part of that, but not the only part of that. So I still think that's the best thing, to keep the Western world together. That would be my goal: make the world safer and stronger for democracy, so that we don't read that book 40 years from now, how the West lost.
Do you think the Trump administration is making the world safer and stronger and making NATO stronger?
Yeah, I don't think it's a binary thing. I think that to isolate what NATO weaknesses are, I think that's fine. They do it in their own way. I wouldn't say things like that on TV. I might say it publicly, privately. So I think that's all right. I think it's okay to point out. I would be more polite about it, about the weaknesses of Europe, what they need to do. But if the goal is to make them stronger as opposed to fragment Europe, then I think that's okay.
But do you think that is the goal?
I don't know. I have not heard them say what they want the ultimate goal to be.
So, but you're not the only one.
But remember, we did not leave NATO, and so to me it's important to understand that originally during Trump 1, people said, we're looking to leave. No, we didn't. He's out there in the world, and you may not agree with it all, but it's not a retreat in America of some sort, and so. And I think the economic side is more complicated because it entails really detailed policy that needs to get done. And I would if I was there, I would kind of be using our moral persuasion, our economics persuasion, our intelligence and military to kind of push Europe to do the things that's right for Europe. And the leadership of Europe has to do it. It really can't be done by America, but we can be a partner, maybe furthering that.
We'll come to the economics in a second, but just one more on the geopolitics, because you're right that it's hard to characterize what the Trump doctrine is, if you will. It's not America first, it's not America alone, it might be America unconstrained, but it has elements that we can now tell. It is a transactional foreign policy. It is a foreign policy that places much less weight actually on alliances. It's a bullying foreign policy. Overall, is that a foreign policy that is good for America?
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on all that, because when you deal with the press, they want You guys always want binary answers to everything.
I honestly think that's a reasonable question. Is it a good thing for America to have this kind of policy?
Let me correct you a little bit, okay? When I talk to the press, they never asked me to comment on everything Biden did. And I think he did some terrible things both domestically and in foreign policy. Do I agree with everything the Trump administration did? Of course not.
No, but in aggregate, is this a good foreign policy?
I don't know yet. If they were here, if I were talking to the president, I'd be saying exactly what I'm saying. This should be the goal. Here are the ways to get it. These things may be counter to that.
So there's an argument that China is actually the big winner from this approach because China has stood up to the United States on tariffs and faced down the United States. China is now projecting itself as a stable supporter of multilateralism. Do you think China is the winner from this?
I think that's a real stretch. China has a $15,000 per person GDP. Ours is 85. We're the most dynamic economy and prosperous the world's ever seen. We have 40 military alliances, 140 economic alliances. They have one. They've done a great job in so many things, but they still import 10 million barrel oil a day. Yeah, this has created some openings for them. Are they going to be the best economic or military alliance for a lot of the people out there who are mad at America? Probably not. So, so I take a deep breath in that one, and it's easy to say. I think they've done things right. They have serious problems. In their economy, they've got, kind of two economies, the consumer, real estate, misallocation of capital, huge investment in technology. I applaud them. Let them, cars and batteries and stuff like that. But whether that works over a long period of time, I do not know. They, on their own, without us, okay, and you guys always forget to mention this, Korea, Japan, Australia, Philippines, they're all rearming on their own. That's China's actions caused that, not America's, actions. We're part of that. I remember between Rahm Emanuel and his ambassador, how they're working with, they've got Korea and Japan working together. They're going to rearm, which I think they have to at this point. And so, yeah, this is a lot of things taking place here, not just one.
Yeah.
And so I try to keep open-minded about all those things and give as best advice as I can to my country or other people when asked.
There are a lot of things happening at the same time. But I'm just trying to get a sense from you about the scale of the moment. Do you think this is, Prime Minister Carney has called it a rupture. Do you think this is we are shifting, is this post-war order that we all talked about, including you, I think, in previous shareholder letters, is that over? Are we in a new world now?
Again, you're making it binary. I don't know. I saw part of Carney's speech. I have a lot of respect for Carney. He did, we're causing some things that may not be good in the long run for America, like, Carney was just in China, and now he's going to go to India and all these things like that. It's not a rupture. If you said to me, has America become unreliable? No. It's just you had total reliance, and now it's less reliable. It's probably more which is now...
Now we're talking semantics. This is my profession, not yours. I mean, less reliable... At some point, you become unreliable.
Well, we're still a military ally to all 40 countries. When I talk to our military, they're geared up to defend their allies around the world. Trump hasn't stopped all that. So I think it's time for people to take a little bit of a deep breath. That does not mean I like it all. Of course, all my Democratic friends send me notes. You got to say this, you got to say that, you got to say this. And my point is, well, no, they never go through any detail whatsoever. They just huff and puff and get angry. And that doesn't work. So... I know what I believe in. I'm going to write some more about it in my chairman's letter about policy I think that work or don't work, and that's what I'm going to do.
So let's talk about economic policy, where there's also been a pretty big change. Two big areas. We've gone from a U.S. that underwrote multilateral trade rules to a U.S. that believes in tariffs. Now, the tariffs that have ended up being imposed are 10% probably on average, not quite as high as we feared on Liberation Day. Is that a good idea?
Again, it's not binary. There are three... No, but you guys, you got to get your heads out of your own echo chamber. There are three parts to trade, okay, and some require tariffs, okay. One part is national security. We should do what we have to do to create national security around rare earths, around advanced active pharmaceutical ingredients, and some that may require policy that is not typical, like tariffs or pay long-term dated contracts so you can build the stuff here you need, and some advanced manufacturers in category. These companies cannot succeed if there aren't barriers, quotas, tariffs, or pay for play. absolutely a sine qua non. I would do what I had to do to protect American Africa. The second one is unfair trade. And there's, I say unfair, important trade. I just don't think furniture or T-shirts are important trade. But, there is unfair trade. It's in some places blown out of proportion. But, if you are subsidizing China in this case, or anyone, subsidizing their cars, their batteries, their this, that, so anyone who tries to compete is going to get sunk because of subsidies.